As the NBA season comes to a close, there are a couple of things that are happening outside of the NBA Finals picture. But even if you do include the NBA Finals between the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat, how do these events affect the Clippers? With a couple of coaches getting hired, a couple of GMs moving on, where do the Clippers fall into recent events in the NBA? Going to be talking about how they affect them coming up on today's Locked On Clippers.
Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, and just finished my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Dime Dropper Pod, and of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for even more Clipper, LA sports, and NBA content. You can also subscribe to Locked On Clippers. You can find this episode on all your favorite podcasting platforms, including YouTube, and I want you to let me know what you think about these recent events and how they affect the Clippers. Let's start out with Bob Meyers, and then after that, we're going to go on to coaching situation around the league, because there's been this carousel of coaches, and Ty Lue's been rumored and linked with certain other teams, even though he's currently on a contract with us. So let's talk about some things, and then, of course, the finals matchup. Let's start with Bob Meyers. So Bob Meyers on Tuesday afternoon at noon Pacific time is set to have a press conference. And we don't know what that's about, but my fingers are crossed that press conference is Bob Meyers walking away from the Golden State Warriors. I think there's a strong chance it happens. Now, given everything I've heard this season about how Bob Meyers was kind of upset about his picks not being used, and Steve Kerr having a different philosophy, or the vets having a different philosophy in terms of, the win now timeline versus the build for the future timeline with Kuminga, Wiseman, and Moody, and they traded Wiseman. It seems like Bob Meyers may not want to deal with the circus. He's been there, he's helped build this dynasty, and maybe he wants to take some time off. Now, the thing is that everyone's talking about is if he leaves the Warriors, it is rumored that he just wants to take some time off. He loves the core and doesn't want to work for another NBA team. Now, if that's true, more power to him. He can do whatever he wants. As for the Clippers and me feeling the way I do as a fan, and Michael Winger just leaving and going to Washington, that means we have a GM vacancy. And I would absolutely be ecstatic if we could get the great Bob Meyers here in Los Angeles with the LA Clippers. Now, the likelihood of that, I'm starting to believe, is increasingly low. And the reason why I say that is because more and more rumors are coming out that Bob Meyers wants to walk away and take a break and doesn't want to take a job with another team. Now, the first question, as I mentioned a couple episodes ago, is Lawrence Frank and Bob Meyers. Bob Meyers is not coming in to work under somebody. So like Michael Winger was working under Lawrence Frank and helping him out. So Lawrence Frank would either be demoted or fired if Bob Meyers came through the door. And I don't know if that's going to happen. Now, the thing about Ballmer is, and Jerry West has a relationship with Bob Meyers because they work together in Golden State. Steve Ballmer, I think, is willing to throw whatever he can out there money-wise to get the best guys for this team in order to help them win a championship. Bob Meyers, I think, would be he has a better track record than Lawrence Frank, so I think it would be pretty reasonable to try to get him and, even potentially move on from Lawrence Frank, even though he's not the problem to me. And I made an episode a couple of weeks ago, just how good of a job has Lawrence Frank done, and I thought he's done a pretty good job. But Bob Meyers comes knocking, you don't just leave him at the doorstep. But anyway, so Bob Meyers is set to announce what's going on at noon. I would tune in. This episode's probably going to come out around that time, so unfortunately you'll probably already know. But man, I think this is big because if Bob Meyers does leave, you best believe, unless, we'll see though, if he announces that he's for sure stepping away, maybe the Clippers won't even try. But knowing Steve Ballmer and how persuasive he can be, I think they're still going to try to push for him. So we'll see how that goes. Again, this really wouldn't be possible without Michael Winger stepping down and accepting that job in Washington, where now he'll have full control of their organizations. So we'll see. But Bob Meyers is, the most important domino in my opinion, because the Clippers, a lot of people are talking about a coaching change. And the thing is, until Ty Lue is fired or walks away, there really is no concrete evidence that there could be a new coach walking through the door. Now, again, I want to keep asking the question, do you want a new coach walking through the door? Because Ty Lue, I still believe, is one of the best in the business. And we're starting to see that in these playoffs, more and more what we're learning, and I guess I'll get into it in the final segment when we talk about the finals, is that coaching, as big as it is, especially in the playoffs, is overrated. I think in the regular season, it actually might be, it's funny, everybody says it's more important in the playoffs, but I'm starting to believe it's more important in the regular season just to put the right guys out there, because in the playoffs, yeah, you're going to need some strategy, you're going to need tacticians, but what wins is the stars, the superstars, your guys being available and being the best versions of themselves. You just saw in this Miami Heat-Boston series, and even in the Nuggets-Lakers series. In the Nuggets-Lakers series, every game was close, but it was one of the Nuggets' two stars that took over every game. In the Celtics-Heat series, it was the first three games, Jimmy and Bam outplayed Jalen and Jason Tatum. And then the next three games, the Jays outplayed them. Then in Game 7, Jimmy Butler was better than any of them. And Jason Tatum got a little injury, and Jaylen Brown was awful. So that's that. But as for Bob Meyers, moral of the story is he has a press conference at noon on Tuesday. If he walks away, expect the Clippers to try to make a move at him. If he's adamant that he doesn't want to do any other job, then maybe not. And I'm starting to think that the likelihood of that is getting stronger, that he wants to legitimately take a break. But coming up, going to be talking about coaching Nick Nurse to the Philadelphia 76ers. How does that affect the Clippers? Also, Adrian Griffin to the Milwaukee Bucks. Going to be talking about all that coming up. But before I do that, I got to tell you about Game Time. If you're listening to this episode in Miami or Denver especially, and you're thinking of getting last-minute tickets to the NBA Finals, well, don't worry. You got to go to Game Time, and if you go there, buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful at all, and it's the easiest and fastest way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you're actually going to have at the event. And some things about Game Time that I think you're going to like: they have flash deals and last-minute tickets. They're easy to find and buy for any kind of event, and you also get the images of your seats, so you can kind of get an idea of what it's going to look like before you actually buy your ticket. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so the coaching carousel is moving right now, and the Milwaukee Bucks and the Toronto Raptors made some big hires, and that means that I should probably talk about them. Even though this is Locked On Clippers, let's see how it affects us. Now again, if Ty Lue does not get fired or let go, this doesn't matter. But I know I mentioned in previous episodes Nick Nurse coming to the Clippers and being the best replacement for Ty Lue if he steps down. So that's why I felt like mentioning this today. And a lot of you I saw in the comments on YouTube said they wanted Nick Nurse because of his defensive reputation, because of his history with Norman Powell and Kawhi Leonard. And you know what? That's perfectly fair. I personally think Nick Nurse and Ty Lue are around the same boat. I think Nick Nurse is a no-nonsense coach that hangs his hat on the defensive end. I think Ty Lue is more of an offense-first mind who's a good adjustment maker and a really good guy to get people to buy in. And that's one thing, as I've said many times on this podcast, that Ty Lue's done an amazing job of getting the most out of certain guys that feel like they're at the end of their rope as far as their NBA career is concerned, like Nicholas Batum, like Reggie Jackson. So Ty Lue is in the same boat to me as Nick Nurse. Now, the thing is, with Nick Nurse off the market, now going to Philadelphia, and by the way, I think that's a step in the right direction for them, considering they had Glenn Rivers before, That's tough because now it takes one of the better candidates away. So who are you left with? Monty Williams, Glenn Rivers, and Mike Budenholzer. None of these guys, especially obviously Glenn Rivers, none of these guys really stand out more than Ty Lue. Now, of course, Sam Cassell, who was on Glenn Rivers' coaching staff, and I think a lot of people feel like he is set to take over as a head coach somewhere. It doesn't seem like it'll happen for him this offseason. And I don't know if he's going to stay on that coaching staff because he's part of Glenn's coaching staff. If Glenn gets another job somewhere else, maybe he'll join. People are saying that he might get a job with the Suns. I don't know. I think that would be hilarious. Honestly, a match made in heaven. But as of now, Nick Nurse going to the Philadelphia 76ers just means to me for the Clippers that the best candidate for the Clippers to be potentially replace Ty Lue was Nick Nurse. Now, to me, as I said, I don't feel as though there are better candidates out there than Ty Lue anymore. The thing is, the Lawrence Frank Ty Lue thing, if the front office and the head coach don't fully agree on roster construction, then I am not confident saying that that is a functional environment to build a championship team. If you're getting orders from above about who to play because they don't trust what's happening out there and they don't like what you're doing because you keep playing your favorites at the expense of the team, and it was at the expense of the team, then I don't want that to continue. Then bring in someone else in the front office if you want to keep Ty Lue. Now, that's a good question for you. If you had to choose between Lawrence Frank and Ty Lue, who are you choosing? Because I agreed with Lawrence Frank this season about his roster construction and philosophy. Wing heavy, then more so than guard heavy. However, I would say a coach, you can argue, might have more of a direct impact on a night-to-night basis of what goes on results-wise because they're on the sidelines. So Ty Lue, look, he's a very valuable part of this franchise. I love Ty Lue. Do I think he had the best season last year? No, I think he had a terrible season for his standards. Was that the reason we lost 4-1 to the Phoenix Suns in the first round? Absolutely not. I think, he played Marcus Morris a little bit too much at the end. Yeah, he never played Covington. Yeah, he never played Terrence Mann 30-plus minutes. But at the end of the day, without Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, we were never beating the Phoenix Suns. Never. It's more about the regular season, though, with Ty Lue, though, that I think we could have gotten 4 or 5 extra wins had he played certain guys more and other guys less. Remember what I talked about in the last, I think it was the last episode on Friday, about our point guard situation. We started Reggie Jackson for 38 games. We started Marcus Morris for 52 games. These guys are not players that are going to be in championship rotations in their careers. And it's not even like we're getting the best versions of them. I'm not saying they couldn't have been in championship rotations, but Marcus Morris is past it. Reggie Jackson is on a championship team right now, that's probably going to win the ring, and he's not getting a lick of playing time for a reason, because he's not that good anymore. I'm sorry. But coming up, going to be talking about, so by the way, the moral of the story is it's looking increasingly likely that Ty Lue is the coach of the Clippers next season. That's kind of how I'm leaning. So expect for Ty Lue to be back and embrace it. Now, that's why I asked the question, how do you feel about the front office versus Ty Lue? Do you think that the Russell Westbrook move makes the players plus Ty Lue feel vindicated about that request, about having a traditional point guard? And how much is that going to affect next season? Because if Russell Westbrook's not back, that means we're on the prowl for another point guard. So we'll see. Now, coming up, going to be talking about the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat. What do they going to the finals mean for the LA Clippers and their roster construction next season? Going to be talking about all that coming up. All right, so to close it out, the Denver Nuggets and the Miami Heat are in the finals, and what a finals we have in store. Two teams that did not really get much attention from the media throughout the regular season. Two teams that people were not picking to go to the finals at all. I wouldn't say at all. There were some people picking Denver like me. If you remember, I don't know if I said it on this podcast, but I kept saying that the Denver Nuggets, whenever we played them, they were the only real great team in the Western Conference, and that was the team that I was so skeptical of the Clippers beating. I said, look, if we don't get a top 3 seed, we're going to be playing Denver's second round, and we don't have a good matchup against them. Do I believe we would have beaten them healthy? No, I do not. Do I believe we would have been the best challenge for them healthy? Yes, I do. Because the Lakers got swept, and even though they had Anthony Davis, I think their offense was still a little bit too, kind of shaky for me. But the Clippers, I think even though our offense wasn't great, I think adding Russell Westbrook changed that matchup for us because we finally got somebody that can exploit Jokic's lack of rim protection, and Russell Westbrook was doing that in that matchup against them on ABC Sunday, the last one we played against them in the regular season, but we lost in overtime when Marcus Morris had the peak of his struggles. But what Miami has shown us here, people are gonna say Miami showed us that seeding doesn't matter. Totally disagree. They are the second 8th seed to make a championship. This is much more of a Cinderella run than it is a blueprint on how to win a championship. And first of all, are they going to win? I don't believe they're going to win, but then again, I've picked against them in every series and they keep proving me wrong. What a job that they've done. Eric Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler, and all of them. But the thing about the Miami Heat is this. They are a very good team, a very well-coached team, but I just don't know if, one, they have the firepower to win this championship, and two, if they can mess around with the Joker. That's the thing. Nobody seems to be able to guard this guy. And then, of course, Jamal Murray's playing at such a high level, which us Clipper fans are very accustomed to seeing. So I really don't know. Now, how does it affect the Clippers? The NBA is a copycat league. So whatever teams win the championship, teams either look to build their teams to defeat them or to follow their model. Now, there's no team with a Nikola Jokic. So let's say the Heat win the championship. If the Heat win the championship, I don't even know what to say. I think it's just a matter of your stars playing well and your role players playing out of their minds. Like, I think if the Heat win the championship, there's nothing to take from it in terms of roster construction. But if the Nuggets win the championship, and they've done it with good process all season, there are a couple things to take away from this. Now, I think that the Miami Heat are going to be in big trouble in this series because Bam Adebayo proved to be the only big that was playing consistently and playing with I wouldn't say playing with any trust, but that Coach Spo could really trust in big moments. If you notice in Game 7, he didn't play Zeller or Kevin Love because he's afraid that they can't guard. So in this series, they won't only be able to play one big, and they don't have big enough forwards to really go small. What are you going to do, switch Jimmy Butler onto Jokic and have Bam help side like the Lakers did? Or Max Strus or Haywood Highsmith onto Jokic? That's just not going to work. That's jump hooks over a chair. So one thing you got to learn playing Jokic, and we know this best from the 2020 bubble, you need two bigs. This season, the Clippers waited half the season to do that. So that's something they cannot mess up next season. You have to have two bigs. Whether they want to bring Mason Plumlee back on board, I am not sure. He is a free agent. I wouldn't mind it at all. But as I said, it would be really nice if we can get a stretch big as well, because that, if we play the Nuggets, can pull Jokic away from the basket and we can get pick and pops for days. We saw that work on Christmas Day in the 2020-2021 season with Serge Ibaka, and we beat Denver in Denver. I think that was the last time we beat them in Denver. So I would love to get a pick and pop big that can defend, but those don't grow on trees. I'm fine if we bring Mason Plumlee back, but moral of the story with the Nuggets, you need two bigs. Now, the main thing that this finals or this playoff run is showing me is that also the Nuggets played Bruce Brown, their jack of all trades, defense, transition guy, 20-plus minutes every game. We should take notes with ours from Massachusetts as well. Terrence Mann. I don't know how many times I'm going to have to see the tweet, the Clipper fans posting, I wish we had someone like this, but we do. He doesn't play enough. Terrence Mann. But shout out to Bruce Brown. He's been phenomenal. And then the main thing I've learned in this playoff run, that's the biggest takeaway, is that I'm going to keep repeating this. Ever since the NBA went positionless, here are the power forwards that have started on championship teams, even though I believe that position is dead in terms of the traditional power forward. Draymond Green 2 years in a row in 17 and 18. Pascal Siakam, second best player on his team in that playoff run in 2019. Anthony Davis in 2020. Giannis in 2021. Last year, Draymond Green again. And then this year, if the Miami wins, they would disprove this notion because they're starting with Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Gabe Vincent, and Max Strus. So they're basically playing with, and they were starting Kevin Love. Then now they've been starting Caleb Martin. So not applicable for the Miami Heat, but for the Denver Nuggets, I don't know who goes down as the 4 and who goes down as the 3, whether it's MPJ or Aaron Gordon. But the point is, look how tall they are. They're 6'9 plus. And that's why Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, who, by the way, have held their own defensively in these playoffs. Murray's been good. Jokic has been solid. He's had some moments where honestly, that's been harsh. Jokic has been pretty good too because the way he defended Anthony Davis was impressive. But there were moments against the Wolves and against the Suns where Jokic even some against the Lakers where he looked exploitable in pick and roll. The thing is, AD's little push shot or mid-range was so inconsistent. It didn't properly exploit Jokic all the time. But he's not going to really go up at the rim. The thing is, the Miami Heat aren't a very athletic team. So if Caleb Martin and Jimmy Butler will attack the rim and try to challenge him, you might see that a good amount. But overall, I don't think it's going to be as successful as you might think. I think you really need a guy that can really elevate, like an Anthony Edwards or even a Westbrook, to really challenge Jokic like that. We'll see, though. Eric Spoelstra is the best coach that they've faced thus far. We'll see what kind of things he has in store. But the moral of the story is you need a bigger athletic four than what the Clippers have had. Because look at these guys that I just named. A lot of those are stars or superstars. These guys, Aaron Gordon and MPJ, what you notice is when their big man gets pulled out of the paint, this is why part of the reason why the Nuggets are so okay, besides the fact that he's not a rim protector, they're so okay with Jokic coming out and hedging screens instead of dropping, and the Clippers are not, is because we have no backside rim protection unless Kawhi and Paul George are playing. If they're not, Marcus Morris, these guys, Robert Covington would. Nico Batum wasn't bad, but Marcus Morris, he wouldn't contest anything at the rim. He can't really get off the ground. MPJ's done an amazing job rotating this season. Really sharp, and he's tall. 6'10". You're seeing a 6'10" guy at the rim. And then if it's Aaron Gordon, I mean, come on. Dunk contest champion. We know the athleticism he has and the strength. Been amazing. So moral of the story, Clippers need to upgrade at the 4 and get younger. If you're interested in some of the 4s that I think we could try to get, look at the previous episodes. There was one about what the Clippers need this offseason, and I think you can find some there. But we'll obviously do more extensive content on it this offseason. Thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. On tomorrow's episode, I'm going to be talking about if this was the most disappointing season in Clipper history. Looking at the other candidates as well. I know that sounds a little bit negative, but right now, look, man, they got me at 5 episodes a week. So until the real offseason starts and the rumors start, I'm going to try to do everything I can to reflect on the past season, and then slowly we'll transition into the future. But thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. Thanks for listening. Make sure you let me know in the comments what you think of some of the questions I asked. Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell for even more. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to Dime Dropper for even more Clipper content and LA sports and NBA content. I go live after every single night of playoff basketball, and we'll be going live after each finals game. But yeah, the age-old so Bob Meyers, watch the press conference, see what happens. We'll see what that means for the Clippers. Might be reacting to it later in the week. Who knows? Coaching, looks like Ty Lue's going to be staying on board, and the Clippers need to make the upgrade at the 4 a huge priority next season. The age-old proverb continues, go Clippers.